The Secret to Happiness of the Old Lady. In a small, peaceful village surrounded by lush green fields, there lived an elderly woman whom everyone respected. She was not only kind and wise, but also radiated optimism and happiness. Whether it was sunny or rainy, no matter how difficult life was, a gentle smile always graced her face. The villagers adored her not just for her kindness, but also for her invaluable advice. Whenever someone felt troubled or lost, they would come to her for guidance. Strangely enough, after speaking with her, they always felt lighter and more positive. It seemed as if she possessed a secret that allowed her to remain joyful, regardless of life's challenges. One day, a young man from the village approached her. He often felt discouraged and could not understand how she maintained her optimism in every situation. He asked, "Grandma, have you never experienced sorrow or hardships in your life? Why do you always seem happy, never complaining or feeling sad? Do you have a secret?" The old lady smiled gently, her wise eyes full of understanding. She softly replied, "My dear, life is full of ups and downs, and no one is spared from difficulties. But I have learned something very important. Happiness does not come from what happens around us, but from how we choose to see life." The young man furrowed his brows, still not fully grasping her words. He curiously asked, "But how can one stay optimistic when facing sorrow? Isn't it natural to feel broken when losing something important?" The old lady smiled again, her gaze drifting slightly as if recalling the past. She slowly shared a part of her life story. "When I was young, I had a small but happy family with my husband and children. We were not wealthy, but our days were filled with laughter. Then one day, my husband fell ill. I did everything I could to save him, but because we could not afford medicine, he passed away. It was the most painful moment of my life. I cried endlessly, feeling as if I could never move on from that loss." The young man listened in silence, sensing the sorrow in her voice. "But then," the old lady continued, "I realized that drowning in grief wouldn't change the past. I still had my children to care for, and I didn't want them to grow up in a home filled with sadness. From that moment, I chose to see life differently. I accepted that losses are a part of life, but instead of letting sorrow control me, I decided to focus on what I still had." The young man pondered over her words. She had lost the most important person in her life, yet she still found joy in continuing her journey. This made him wonder, could happiness truly be a choice? After a moment of deep thought, he asked, "But how do you maintain such optimism every day? Some days feel terrible, with nothing to be happy about." The old lady gently replied, "Every morning when I wake up, I remind myself that today is a new day, and I will find something to smile about. Sometimes it's as simple as feeling the warmth of the sun, seeing a blooming flower, or sharing a smile with a neighbor. Even the smallest things can remind us that life is still full of beauty." The young man remained unconvinced. He asked, "But what if something truly terrible happens? How can one still feel happy?" The old lady nodded, as if she had expected this question. She slowly said, "Life always has its hardships, but nothing lasts forever. Every sorrow, every challenge, eventually, they pass. Whenever I face difficulties, I tell myself, this too shall pass. Instead of dwelling on what I've lost, I focus on the good things I still have. My health, my friends, and the simple fact that I am alive. No matter how tough life gets, there is always something to be grateful for." The young man thought deeply. Her words sounded simple, yet they carried a profound truth. He realized that happiness is not determined by circumstances, but by the way we choose to perceive life. From that day on, he decided to follow her advice. Every day he looked for something positive, no matter how small. And gradually he noticed a real change in his life. Even on difficult days, he no longer felt overwhelmed by sadness. The old lady's story spread throughout the village, and people began to change their outlook on life. They stopped focusing too much on negativity and instead learned to appreciate the small, beautiful moments around them. Her lesson was simple, yet incredibly profound. Happiness does not come from what we have or what happens to us, but from how we choose to see life. The story conveys a profound message about happiness and how people face difficulties in life. Through the old woman's story, we can learn the following lessons. Happiness does not depend on external circumstances, but on how we perceive life. No matter how difficult things get, we can always choose to think positively. Everything will pass, both joy and sorrow. When we understand that challenges are temporary, we become more patient and resilient. Appreciating small things, a sunny day, a smile, a peaceful moment, helps us find joy in everyday life. Changing our perspective changes our life. When we learn to focus on the good, life becomes more meaningful and fulfilling. This story encourages us to create our own happiness instead of letting circumstances determine our emotions, a simple yet powerful lesson.